What's going on, guys? Marco here with Dynasty Nerds, and I am bringing you our Week 1 start sits. And I know what you're thinking. Week 1's here. I can't believe it. I am with you. So before we even jump into anything, we've got to say, I'm not talking about quarterbacks and tight ends. It's Week 1. Odds are whoever you drafted first at that position is who you're starting. And in your dynasty leagues, your best available option is going to be who you play in Week 1. You're going to start your studs in most of these situations. If you've got a very particular quarterback or tight end question, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. I'll get to any questions I can. You can drop comments below. I'll get to as many of those as I see as well. But let's jump into it. Running backs are going to be first. So my running back starts for this week, for Week 1, are two guys that I have been, talking about kind of all off season. The first one is Antonio Gibson. Obviously, there's been tons of talk. He's going to be the kick returner. He's going to be a punt returner. Brian Robinson's there. We, of course, know the horrible situation that happened with Brian Robinson. We're wishing him a speedy recovery, and hopefully, I think the rumors are that he might be able to get back as early as Week 5. We don't know if that's going to happen, but we're focused on this week, and Antonio Gibson is likely to retain all of his former duties from the two seasons prior, which means he is going to be a guy who gets a ton of work, especially in scoring opportunity. And in Week 1, he plays the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is a defense that has some pieces. They've gotten a little bit better, but they've also gotten a little bit worse. They lost Myles Jack, and ultimately, this is a team that is going to probably be able to get up early on the Jacksonville Jaguars and ride Antonio Gibson through the second half. So Antonio Gibson is a guy in PPR and standard. I love him for Week 1. I think he is going to probably finish in the top 15, maybe higher, depending on the kind of workload he gets in the second half of this game. All right, the second guy I think is a running back start for Week 1 is Elijah Mitchell. Now, Elijah Mitchell is a guy who people are saying, is he going to get the workhorse, responsibilities? Is he going to share with Jeff Wilson, who's actually come on in the last week or so here as a guy who's going to kind of fill those third down role opportunities? And Jeff Wilson might be involved to some degree, but Elijah Mitchell has shown, and the 49ers have shown us, that when he is healthy, he is the guy that they want to lean on when it comes to the run game. He is playing a Chicago Bears defense that has lost a lot of pieces, an offense and a defense that is completely overhauled, and who knows exactly what they're going to be able to bring to Week 1 on the defensive side of the ball. They gave up Eddie Goldman this past offseason, and there's a lot of questions when you look at what this team has on the defensive side of the ball. They traded away Khalil Mack as well. And really, ultimately, the Bears don't have a ton to get excited about on their defense, which means Elijah Mitchell should feast. This is going to be a game that I think is going to be a little more competitive than people think, but it's going to be one that Trey Lance and the 49ers probably walk away with the win, and Elijah Mitchell will probably be the guy who carries the bulk of the work. I think he's going to get into the end zone in this one once, if not twice, depending, where Trey Lance can get them up and down the field. But Elijah Mitchell is another guy similar to Antonio Gibson, who I think has a top 15 running back potential in Week 1. All right, let's talk about my sits. We'll talk about these briefly. So the first one is the Jets running backs, whether it's Breece Hall, Michael Carter. I think they're going to be in a weird split, especially early season. And like if you've seen any of my content, I think Breece Hall starts to take that job more and more as the season goes on. But they're playing the Baltimore Ravens, a fully healthy defense, and ultimately the quarterback situation is most likely going to be Joe Flacco, and the offensive line has questions. So there's going to be a ton that this offense needs to figure out in Week 1, and they haven't had a ton of time to do that in the offseason with the injury to Zach Wilson. So it's just a backfield you want to avoid for Week 1, maybe even Week 2. We'll see kind of what we see in Week 1, but until we get some sort of clarity between the Breece Hall, Michael Carter, the Joe Flacco, the offensive line, really what this offense is going to be able to do, if they're going to be able to take a step, you're avoiding them, especially when they're playing a defense as stout as the Baltimore Ravens. All right, the other guy I'm talking about is the opposite end of the Elijah Mitchell talk, and that's David Montgomery. I think Khalil Herbert's going to be involved. I don't know if Tristan Ebner is going to be involved, but people have talked about him as well. I'm not overly worried, but this is a backfield that's going to be shared, and it's also going to be shared with Justin Fields, who I think is going to run quite a bit, similar to the Trey Lance kind of guy. But David Montgomery also is going to probably be in a negative game script. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, but ultimately, I think Justin Fields is the type of quarterback who's not really a dink and dunk kind of quarterback, especially when he's in a system that is built around him. So David Montgomery is a guy who I think I am fading. I think he falls outside of the top 20, maybe outside of the top 25 in week 1 at the running back position. So let's talk about my deep start at running back. So this is if, in your dynasty league, you are just someone who loaded up on talent at every other position and 0 RB was your route, or, you've gotten running backs that are banged up. You've got J.K. Dobbins. You're not sure if he's going to be on the field. There's a lot of questions. Maybe you've got Breece Hall and week 1 is a question mark for him. I think that Melvin Gordon could be a really sneaky play at the running back position for your dynasty leagues, for your redraft leagues, whatever it might be, because he's going against the Seattle Seahawks. This is a revenge game for Russ. Sure, they might run up the score a little bit, but it's a game that they might not need to really do too much in the second half at all. I think Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon are both going to feast in week 1, and the benefit is Melvin Gordon also has an opportunity to feast in week 2. We'll talk about that next week, but he is my deep sleeper, deep start at the running back position. Okay, we're going to transition over to wide receivers, and I've got 2 starts for you, Hollywood Brown and Drake London. Hollywood Brown is the heir apparent to the wide receiver 1 role for this Arizona Cardinals team while DeAndre Hopkins is suspended. He's going against the Kansas City Chiefs, who, even if they don't have Tyreek Hill, they are going to be throwing the ball often. This is a prolific offense, and you know what? The Cardinals have a prolific offense too, and they can match. I think the Chiefs walk away with the W here, but it's a game where the Cardinals are going to have to be throwing a lot. We don't have to worry about the Kyler Murray shoulder injuries that typically come on late season. And I think Hollywood Brown could see, anywhere from 8 to 12 targets in this game or more, depending on how bad they get down in this game. So it's going to be a fun game to watch for fantasy purposes. Hollywood Brown is a guy who I have as a wide receiver 1 for week 1 of the NFL season. All right, let's talk about Drake London. So he's a guy who you're probably wondering, should I do it? Should I not? Get clarity on the injury. Obviously, I don't have that yet. I'm recording this on Tuesday. But get clarity on the Drake London injury. If he is a go, he is a guy I'm trusting, though. Odds are he's probably going to go up against a Marshawn Lattimore type. And Marshawn Lattimore has proven that he is a very good corner, but he struggles against man coverage. He struggles against these big physical presence at the wide receiver position. This could also be a Kyle Pitts conversation. But Drake London's a guy who's probably on the edge of your roster right now. If you are a team who's got him and got to draft him in your dynasty leagues or even in redraft, he went in a place where he doesn't need to probably start for you, but he's definitely in that conversation, and I think he is a start. I don't think he's a wide receiver 1. I think he's a low-end wide receiver 2, but he's got that upside to get into the high-end wide receiver 2 range in this game because I think the Saints are going to try to pass the ball quite a bit, get Jameis Winston really established, and I think Drake London is going to be just the benefactor of the Falcons having to throw the ball. Their run game is kind of weird. It's, all the pass-catching running backs and Tyler Algier. So I think they're going to throw the ball. I think both Kyle Pitts and Drake London will benefit from that. All right, let's talk about my sits at wide receiver. I've got 3. I'm going to hit on them really, really quickly. The first one is a guy I love, and it breaks my heart to say he's a sit, but similar to the running backs, I'm sitting Elijah Moore. I am sitting all of the Jets offense in this game. They're going against, again, the Baltimore Ravens defense that has proven to be stout, especially when they're fully healthy. They are coming into the season expecting to be exactly that, a very stout, efficient defense. And Elijah Moore, there's, like I said, with the running backs, there's just so many questions. While I believe in him for the full season, I believe in him, as early as week 2. But week 1, I've got to see what happens here, and I'm really not sure if I'm excited to play him in my roster. If you've got 2 flexes or 3 flexes, I'm okay throwing him there. I don't love it, but I'm okay doing it. But if you've only got 1 flex for your dynasty roster or your redraft roster, I am completely avoiding Elijah Moore if I can. All right, the next guy is a guy who probably is similar to Drake London, where he's probably flirting with your roster, depending on the makeup of your dynasty team. And if you got him in redraft, again, he's right in that spot where he might fill a flex spot. He might not have to for you, but it's Amari Cooper. The Carolina Panthers defense is one of my underdog defenses this year, and I think it's one of the things where we don't know exactly how Jacoby Brissett's going to fit into this offense, but we know he's not an overly talented quarterback. We know he likes to target the tight ends. Amari Cooper will probably see 6 to 8 targets in this one. We don't know how catchable those targets will be. We don't really like the situation that he's going to be in. He's going to probably get the double coverage treatment here. He's going to get, one of their top corners. He's probably going to see some Jeremy Chin. And there's a lot of things here that can go wrong for Amari Cooper. He's one of those medium floor, very low ceiling players, and I'm not looking to start that in week 1. All right, the last guy is similar to Amari Cooper, where he's just doesn't have a ton of upside, and it's Hunter Renfrow. Full PPR leagues, people were enamored with him last year, and I get it. But Devontae Adams is there. Darren Waller is there. Josh Jacobs is there. Brandon Bolden technically is there. Zamir White is there. There's plenty of weapons on this offense, and really the thing that helped Hunter Renfrow was his route running and his volume. His volume is gone. He's still got his route running. He's just a low floor or a low ceiling player. If you have to play him in your flex 2 spot, I get it. I'm just not excited about it. He could give you 10 points. He could give you 8 points in this one. And that's really not a guy I'm excited to play. If you have him in Dynasty leagues and there's a player or a manager in your league who really, really believes in Hunter Renfrow, I'm fine seeing what you can get for a return, because Renfrow is probably going to be on my sits list most weeks because of this just volume that he's not going to probably have this year. All right, my deep start at the wide receiver position is a guy who ultimately I don't really believe in for the entirety of 2022, and I definitely don't believe in him for the long haul or for Dynasty leagues, but it's Wandel Robinson. And I think Wandel Robinson is actually a sneaky start in week 1 because the Tennessee Titans are notoriously awful at covering the slot. And Wandel Robinson is likely the starter out of the slot for the New York Giants, and he could be a guy, especially in PPR leagues, that is just littered with targets. Who knows exactly what we're going to see from Kadarius Toney? I know a lot of people believe in him. I'm really on the fence with Kadarius Toney. And ultimately, Saquon Barkley is the only person on this team who demands opportunity, who demands volume. So Wandel Robinson could just be the guy who wins the coverage battle in week 1, and he could be peppered with targets from Daniel Jones. PPR alone, I think he's probably, 8 to 15 points. And if he could maybe get in the end zone, depending where he's getting those targets, that could be a really, really sneaky play. Again, he is a deep sleeper start at the wide receiver position if you are desperate. But this is Dynasty leagues, which was what we're talking about for the most part. And you might be in that situation. So I think I'm going to give you the go-ahead, the thumbs up, the gold star to start Wandel Robinson in week 1. And if he goes off, try to trade him. All right, guys, thank you for hanging out. If you got any questions, hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. Drop comments below. I'll get to whatever I can. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so you get all of our content in season to help you win your Dynasty leagues. I have had an absolute blast hanging out with you. Don't forget to be kind, do good, and I'll see you next time. Peace.